They
Mhm.
might even contact you, even though you've not posted anything of concern, but it's all in what you're telling them. Are you giving them any vulnerability? If they have a conversation with you, and like I did, I said, well, it's been nice having a conversation with you, but no, this has got to be the first and last. And I expected never to hear from the guy again. Well,
Yeah.
guess what? I heard from him again.
Mhm.
And then I sent him out packing it away, and guess what? He came right back like a boomerang. It became a joke. I
Mhm.
actually nicknamed him Boomerang because he kept on coming back. And it was one of those cutesy whatever. But what I should have done, looking back, was after the first time that he came back and I sent him away, okay, fine. But after that second time, I should have blocked him.
Mhm.
100% should have blocked him.
Welcome to the Lived Experience Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Timmy Ryan, and today I am joined by author Zoey Michaels, whose new book, Breaking Free: How Scammers Manipulate and How to Fight Back, is out, and it takes us into the world of modern scams. Zoe's work uniquely combines storytelling with practical advice, allowing readers to understand both the psychology of scammers and the experience of victims. Released to coincide with National Slam the Scam Day, her book provides crucial insights into how fraudsters operate, and she's going to offer some tips and strategies on how you can protect yourself and your loved ones. So, thank you so much, Zoey, for being here and talking about this important topic because I feel like, especially now in the tech world that we're in, which is a blessing and a curse, that it is even more prevalent now, and throw in AI, and it's even more it's even more
It's
complicated. So
treacherous.
thank you so much for being here. And I love to just get right into it and would love for you to share your journey and why this topic became so important to you.
Absolutely. And let me just start off by saying that that was probably one of the best intros to this subject I have heard in all of these interviews. I can tell that you actually did your homework.
I did.
So
Thank
that was
you.
refreshing. Um,
Yes.
so, yes, it's funny. I never visualized myself as someone who's going to be like a spokesperson for those who have been scammed. Definitely not on my to do list of things I ever wanted to do. But I had been scammed not once, but twice. Once 5 years ago, and I had, after that short experience by comparison to this one, set up all kinds of rules to protect myself. And I did fairly well for about 5 years until I broke one of my rules because I thought I was safe. I thought I knew what to watch for just in case. I even took the precaution of when I accepted this friendship and allowed the conversation to continue to label possible scammer next to the person's name to remind
Yeah.
myself to be careful.
Mm-hmm.
But that is the slippery slope. That is the treachery of that because manipulators manipulate. It's what they do.
Yes.
And once he caught wind that I had labeled him as possible scammer, he spun things around like, that's disrespectful. You need to remove that. And in so doing, also removing that reminder that to be
Mm-hmm.
careful with him. There
Yeah.
were so many different factors. And every time I talk about the subject, it's like, oh, here's another thought that I had not previously discussed in this previous interview. So every day, every interview is like, oh, right. It's just all these little side notes that, depending on how the light shines,
Mm-hmm.
the way you interact with the information. One of the things that I have found most surprising in through this process is even the self discovery in the healing process.
Mm-hmm.
When I wrote this book, let me backtrack a little bit. Initially, I was so mortified, so just like, oh my goodness, what did I do? The first time I was scammed, it was, I would say, traumatic. So
Mm-hmm.
much so that I kept it to myself. I no more than two or three people knew what had happened
Yeah.
because I was ashamed. I was hiding, but I was trying to protect myself also. This time around, being so appalled, I felt like I needed to do more. I still wasn't comfortable sharing with people that I had been scammed.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I certainly did not want to put a target on myself
Right.
by putting information out there. That was not my goal. So initially, what I did was I took everything, every hoop I was put through, and I wanted to understand why did I fall for it when I thought I knew better, which is how this whole book developed. I had done a timeline. I used AI to help reverse engineer, okay, how does a manipulator think? How do they
Mm-hmm.
maneuver me into this? And it also helped me to understand that my reactions were very normal. They were almost mathematical, I guess would be a good word. They knew if they pushed certain buttons that their target, and I'm
Mm-hmm.
emphasizing the word target instead of victim these
Right.
days. I'm trying to change the narrative.
Yes. I
But
love that.
that they would react a certain way. They could expect that, even to the point of being cut off and then finding a way to slide back in. They fully expect that. So it helped me to better understand and forgive myself because there's that element of self blame. And when I heard about the Scam Day, I pushed forward my project in doing this book. Uh, and I didn't want to do just this is what happened to me kind of book. There's great value in people sharing their stories. I think it's wonderful. But I did
Mm-hmm.
not want to be just someone who, well, this is what happened to me and leave it at that. I
Right.
wanted to create that tool to help people also forgive themselves and understand how they were manipulated. Hopefully, if their friend or loved one gives them the book while this is going on, they
Yeah.
even have the opportunity to escape. And one of the things I have been realizing as my healing process goes, you know, I probably could have gotten out a lot sooner, but when you are drowning in the financial debt that they put you in, you're looking for any source of help. And if
Mm.
people give you money, that money, some of it might benefit you, but most of it benefits the scammer. So it
Yeah.
prolongs the agony.
Mm-hmm.
And looking back, I am so grateful to my family that whether they were aware of it or not, they
Mm-hmm.
actually paid for things directly rather than giving me the money.
Yeah.
And I, looking back, I'm so thankful for that because it
Yes.
helped bring it to an end sooner than it might otherwise have dragged on.
Mm-hmm.
So friends and family, if you even remotely suspect that your loved one's being scammed,
Yes.
by all means help them, but help them in a smart way. Otherwise, you're going to be
Mm-hmm.
scammed by proxy.
Yes. Yep. Mm-hmm.
So you don't want to do that. But by all means, help your family.
Yes.
Um, but that's kind of been the journey up to this point. I After releasing the book, thought I could wash my hands. Okay, I've done my part to help my fellow man, and I'm gonna move on and live my life and
Mm-hmm.
write my nice fiction stories and deal in the nice bubble world that I would prefer.
Yes.
But as I realized, actually, this is interesting. Um, all along while I was being scammed, I was looking for proof, confirmation that this person was who I thought he was, or confirmation that he was not who I thought he was. The whole time it eluded me. Um, there were so many twists and turns. I think I was dealing with multiple people, in fact,
Oh.
throughout this whole thing. And my book kind of plays up to that. So I'm trying not to go too deep into the book because
Yes, yes,
I
no.
like
We
people to
gotta we
actually
want
get
we
the
want
book
people to buy the book. So you gotta buy the book if you want the
to get the
full
whole
full story,
story.
y'all.
Exactly. Or tune into my podcast that I'll be launching later this month, and then I'll
Yes.
give you the whole 9 yards. But where was I going with this? So it was not until I had actually finally cut them off once and for all. And when I say once and for all, I cut off contact about 4 or 5 times before it finally took. Because they're
Wow.
that good at sliding right back into you. They find a way to
Mm-hmm.
pull you back in. And it was about 2 weeks after I had cut off once and for all that guess what picture I saw scrolling through Facebook? Same
Yeah.
person, different name. And finally, it was like, there's the incontrovertible proof I had been looking for.
Right.
Because I had done reverse image searches. I had done everything, looking up his like
Mm-hmm.
education that he supposedly had.
Right.
But it was after he knew I was really truly done. Then there's that face, and even though I was already in the process of my book, that lit a fire under me. I was mad.
Oh yeah. You went
And
from shame, anger, embarrassment to like, you know what? No.
that's right. I'm taking you down, buddy.
Yes.
And so I contacted, I reported it to Facebook, and it makes me crazy because you get the standard line because they haven't done anything because they're smart enough to move their stuff off of Facebook.
Right.
So this person has not violated community standards. If you don't like them, just block them.
Oh.
Okay. So I did that, but then I thought, you know what? There's got to be something out there. And so I found Facebook groups where people were reporting, potential scammers or people who had scammed them. And I thought, well, look good. Here's something I can at least post these pictures that he very slyly used the story function in Facebook, which
Uh-huh.
will disappear. But I had taken screenshots all along because I was concerned on some level, and I thought, I'm going to hold on to these just in case. And I got to post all of them in the Facebooks, so that hopefully they'll show up in reverse image searches for others
Yeah.
who might be tempting targets for him. So I like to think I did something.
Yeah.
But as I interacted with these groups, people were in there looking for advice. I think I might be scammed. Here's the situation. And other people who had been scammed offering advice. But there were also family members and friends who were looking for advice. And it was triggering these people who had been scammed.
Mhm.
And I tried to, answer what I could, but I actually kind of commented to the group as a whole that it's very good that these people are coming here to ask these questions because they can help someone who might be in the situation. We need
Right.
to educate them, we need to help them. And that's what led to the idea of, well, maybe I need to develop a podcast for that purpose.
Mm-hmm.
And initially, I thought, well, Voices of the Scammed, it's on point. The idea would be to do a safe space where people who had been scammed could explain to people what to watch for in their loved ones.
Yeah.
Maybe professionals could weigh in. But I think it was a little too on point and it made people uncomfortable.
Yeah.
So I have now rebranded to The Molten Truth and broadened out, yes, if you've been scammed, by all means, I want you here, but also anyone who's been manipulated, anyone who's had some
Mhm.
something that they've had to overcome, or if you have expertise to offer to these ones who've been in this situation. And
Right.
so, hopefully that will gain the traction I'm looking for.
I love that.
Yeah,
And I think just in hearing you talk about it, scamming has like many times this financial component, but there's this emotional component
very
that
much.
also pulls people in. Can you
Mhm.
talk a little bit about what are scammers looking for in their targets?
Yeah. It's very interesting because a target isn't always a target. If you are doing well emotionally and financially, you're not a target. It's like, and I don't know this from experience. I know this like from just general social and whatever, but you hear about stories about swimming with sharks, right?
Yeah.
So, if you're going underwater smoothly, you're not going to be a target for a shark. But if you're flailing around, oh, now the shark's interested, right?
Right.
That's what we think we know. I am not an
Hmm.
expert.
Makes
But
sense.
by the same token, if you are, appear to be lonely, if you are going through a hard time, if you are just in any way vulnerable, because for all we know, any one of us at any time have a potential scammer following our Facebook or Instagram or whatever social media. They
Hmm.
might even contact you even though you've not posted anything of concern, but it's all in what you're telling them. Are you giving them any vulnerability? If they have a conversation with you And like I did, I said, well, you know, it's been nice having a conversation with you, but no, this has got to be the first and the last. And I expected never to hear from the guy again.
Yeah.
Well, guess what? I heard from him again.
Mm-hmm.
And then I sent him out packing away. And guess what? He came right back like a boomerang. It became a joke. I
Mm-hmm.
actually nicknamed him Boomerang because he kept on coming back.
Yes.
And it was one of those cutesy, whatever, you know. But what I should have done, looking back, was after the first time that he came back and I sent him away, okay, fine. But after that second time, I should have blocked him.
Mm-hmm.
100% should have blocked him. Hindsight is 2020.
Right.
Hopefully those of you listening here will realize that do better than Zoe did. Go ahead and block them.
Yeah.
You know, because at that point they're not being respectful of what you've already said your what you want. So
Right.
you should not even remotely feel bad for blocking someone who is not respecting your wishes.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
And I think a lot of people too think like, "Ah, I'm too smart to ever be scammed,"
Oh
or,
yeah.
I got this, I'm good at reading people.
Mm-hmm.
And that guilt and shame, I can only imagine, has to
Yeah.
be so powerful. What do you say to people? And I'm sure in your book and as you launch your podcast, you're going to be talking more about this, but what do you say to people who have that guilt and that shame that they're
Right.
holding?
I say it's very normal to feel that way. It's absolutely normal. In fact, you know, don't feel bad about it. Um, do what you can to work through it. And it can be in different ways. In my case, how I connect with the world is through writing. It's how I connect with myself. It's how I connect with people in general. I do much better writing than I do verbal. uh,
Yeah.
so for me, that going through my timeline, trying to retrace my steps was part of my healing process. Interestingly, just this week, I had there was a conversation and a friend mentioned something that I had never even heard of, but I was like, oh my goodness, that is exactly what happened to me. She had talked about, let me see if I actually wrote it down because I was like, ooh, I want to remember this because and it led me to do actually a blog about it. But she had made this comment about putting feelings into words can reduce your emotional state and that it's scientifically proven. And that just resonated with me when she said that, so much so that I typed it down in my little
Yeah.
notebook so I wouldn't forget it because I realized, you know, after writing my book, that was some level of catharsis.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I was still afraid to put it out under my name. I was like, oh, I don't know if I want to do that. And then
Right.
going on podcasts and speaking about it, I did not want to do that. Every step I have been like, no, no.
Right.
But after, was it after my first podcast? That was when I finally told my best friend, who was right here in town, who even maybe suspected that I was being scammed, but didn't have proof that I was being scammed.
Mhm.
But that was when I started to open up just the teeniest bit to my friend. And as I have opened up and as I have talked, which was the very thing I did not want to do with anyone, that has helped me heal so much.
Yeah.
Um, so I was, thinking at the outset, I don't want to be the poster child for being scammed. I don't want to talk about this. I don't want to relive this. I don't want to be thinking about this all the time. And I don't. I mean, my life is my life, and I'm busy with other things, thank goodness. But it has really helped me. I mean, just in the time I've started talking about this, I started this probably about the middle of March, about the time that my book was released. About 2 or 3 weeks later is when I did my first podcast. And I have found the more I have opened up, the more I am able to open up, the
Mm-hmm.
more I feel better about what happened and forgiving myself for it.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, as opening up has really helped me to heal even more than I expected to. I certainly have healed faster this time around, even though I was scammed far worse
Yeah.
the second time around, because I have opened up, which is human nature. You don't want to. You want to hold it in, hold it in.
And you see
It,
other people having similar experiences and you
yes,
don't feel as isolated. And
it's true.
that's why, I'm so glad you're here today to talk to people because I have known people who have been scammed and there is that level of shame.
Yeah,
And there's also that trying to rebuild process.
it's a nightmare.
And without getting into all of your good stuff in your book, can you give some tips about the rebuilding process? What does that look like for people?
It can be slow, and it's going to be different for everyone. It comes down
Hmm.
to how badly, how much you lost and what kind of support system you have. Um, the first time I had a really fantastic support system in that I was able to stay with my family. I did not have the degree of assets then that I had to lose at this point in time.
Yeah.
Um, so I had a quicker financial recovery for those reasons.
Mhm.
In this situation, I'm still working on it. I managed to save my house, yay!
Yeah.
I am working on the transportation factor because I did lose that. And I lost more. And I try not to tell people how much I lost. That was one thing I figured out early on with this scammer because,
Yeah.
you tell someone, well, I've been scammed before and that's why I'm super careful. Well, the scammer's gonna twist it and go, well, it's okay. I've been scammed too, and I've lost even more than you lost. Because
Right.
if you're
Right.
open about how much you've lost,
Hmm.
well, not only are they going to work on that, but also you've just set them a financial goal. Well, she lost that much this time. We can push her to this much.
Right.
So
So
I'm a
that's
little more
one of
careful about
their
that.
sort of tactics, it sounds like, is they're looking for people who, like you mentioned, may be vulnerable.
Hmm.
You talked a little bit about, an ideal target can be really anyone. It can
It
change
can.
as your life changes,
It
right?
can.
Again,
You
like
could
some
be
people think
young
this will
or
never
old.
happen to me, but they find themselves in a situation. What do you say? Because you talked about family really being supportive to you in a way where it was like they weren't just giving you the money, they weren't just kind of bailing you out that way. What do you say to family members and friends who are suspicious that their loved one is being scammed and perhaps not sure how to approach that person?
That is one of the best questions, because you would think the obvious thing would be, hey, you're being scammed, get out. The direct approach is what most people would think.
Mm-hmm.
That is actually probably the worst approach, in my opinion. And it's because if the person is vulnerable enough that they have been in contact with this scammer, they've got a relationship with them. They are
Mm-hmm.
talking to them daily, multiple times a day, even. Whereas maybe they're not talking to you the same frequency. So they're closer emotionally to that scammer. And you
Mm-hmm.
are pushing them even further to be closer. Because even if they confront the scammer's going to manipulate, they're going to twist.
Right.
So I have concluded. Oh, and here's another thing too, because I actually had this happen. I had done my research and had people I didn't know say, "Hey, we think you're being scammed." But some people who were close to me actually said that to me. Hey, we think you're being scammed. And in my heart and mind, I finished the thought because that's the only person who could ever love me. And that's what they're going to hear. Even though they may hear and rationally recognize what you're saying might be right,
Right.
and they might even take action, in their heart, they're going, well, because that's the only person who would ever show interest to me, is a scammer. No one else could possibly. So you're pushing them deeper into that hole that you're hoping to get them out of.
I
So,
can see that. And that just
mhm,
isolates that person even more where they're not opening up in just this dangerous cycle.
exactly. So what I did was in my book, I actually set up three questionnaires. One is
Okay.
for friends and family, so they can gauge, are my fears legitimate? Like, do I recognize this behavior, this behavior? So
Mm-hmm.
there's a questionnaire for them to say, okay, do I really think this family member or friend is being manipulated? Let's fill out the questionnaire and it'll help them kind of gauge how sure
Mm-hmm.
they are about it. There's one for the target themselves. So they can answer the questions. If they answer them honestly, it can help them draw that conclusion on their own, which is really what you want. You
Right.
want them to draw that conclusion. Um, and then there's one for professionals that I worked up in case they had any degree of familiarity with their patient to the level of being able to gauge that. So I did 3 separate questionnaires for that purpose. But my hope is that if that person who is being scammed is given that questionnaire, and maybe even if the family gave them the book to follow up with the questionnaire, because they might realize they're being scammed after the questionnaire, but they might be like, okay, but what do I do? How do I get out of this? Or, well, I still am not sure. Then maybe if they see these specific manipulations and how my target character reacts, and if that resonates, if they recognize, oh, that's how I reacted, or yes, that's how I would react, and if they start watching for some of these other scenarios, even if it continues, but if they start seeing that, then maybe they will reach out for that help,
Yeah.
and they will do what they need to do to get out of that situation. They will fight back.
And knowing that even if you're deep in, you can still get out at any point.
Absolutely.
And I think sometimes we just feel like we're so far gone, that it's like you said, like, how do I even break free from this?
Right.
Um,
Well, they emotionally exhaust you.
mm-hmm.
I was taken to a point, I have never in my life needed to be on any kind of medication for any kind. Oh, did we lose? Okay, there we are. So I've never needed to be on any kind of medication in my life for, anxiety or depression
Mm-hmm.
until this time being scammed. They had pushed me to
Wow.
a point of emotional exhaustion where I was even more easily manipulated. And I had to go to
Mm-hmm.
my doctor and ask for medication. And
Yeah.
even though she didn't know why I needed the medication, she just knew that I was not my usual self. She was
Mm-hmm.
like, usually you're very happy. My nickname as a child was Smiley, if that gives you an
Yeah.
indication, right?
You seem like an overall happy person, so I can
Generally
tell.
speaking, we all have
Yes.
our moments, but generally
Right.
speaking, yeah. But
Mm-hmm.
she was like, yeah, you are not yourself. Let's get you this, let's get you on this, and let's see how you feel. But
Right.
I had actually had researched how to in my life, because I was that level of depressed and just anxious.
Mm-hmm.
But that's what they do. I've been illustrating it like you're in 3 feet of water. You can stand up at any time, but they have got you so turned around and confused that you think you're way out in the ocean.
Yes. And that's scary. And it could certainly, I know, feel like a hopeless
Mhm.
situation. And what you're doing is offering people that space, because when people hear other people's stories, whether it's your story or someone else you'll have on your platform, it makes them feel like they're not alone. Okay, this happened to other people. I'm not
Yes.
alone in this. And just going beyond your book and the message for breaking free, what do you hope readers and your podcasters, that podcast listeners will walk away from knowing?
Really, more than anything, I feel like there was a time in our history when, if a person was raped, it was swept under the rug, it was kept quiet. Oh, the shame factor, right?
Mm-hmm.
I really want to break that in the world of people being scammed. There's that same type of stigma where, oh, you've been scammed, you know, don't say anything to anyone about it. Oh yeah, you're right to feel shamed. Whether they, even though they may not say that, that's the message coming
Mm-hmm.
across. And I really want to break that wide open. That should not be the case. Just because you were scammed does not mean that you are not smart. You can be
Right.
brilliant and still be scammed. You
Mm-hmm.
can do all the right things and still be scammed,
Yes.
because it's like, I work in the field of healthcare, so my mind goes to
Yes.
healthcare. But just like when you catch an illness, it's because your immune system was weakened. So your emotional immune system was likely weak at a point in time when that predator came at you.
Mm-hmm.
In my case, I was dealing with a death of a business. My business was dying, so my finances were going down. A friend
Mm-hmm.
of mine had actually committed suicide, so I had recently
Oh,
lost a friend in a very traumatic way.
yes.
And I was only like a year or two out of being divorced and losing my mother within a few weeks
Oh,
of each other. So,
okay.
talk about an emotional immune system being
Yes.
down, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I was a tempting target. And I would wager that everyone out there who's been scammed, or we'll call it 90%, were
Yes.
probably in similar situations where they were emotionally weakened by some
Mm-hmm.
event going on in their life.
Yes.
And
No, no, you're great, please.
there's also, you can be raised in a very healthy environment. I had great parents. I have a great family. And I felt like I had a very stable background.
Mm-hmm.
But I married a man, and he was not a bad man, but he did like things his own way, and he knew how to get his own way. He
Right.
tended to manipulate. But after being married to him for 13 years under the same roof, 15 years,
Mm-hmm.
altogether, it was years later that I realized I learned how to be manipulated from him. He set me up to not recognize when I was being manipulated.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's something that's been part of my discovery process as I've been talking to different ones
Right.
in these podcasts. I'm like, it's kind of, like I said, it's been a voyage of self discovery.
Mm-hmm. Self-awareness and
Hmm.
just again, just healing,
Yeah.
and being courageous. And I call it not just a safe space, but a brave space of being
Yeah.
able to say, hey, this is what happened to me, but I'm still here to pour into others and help them through their struggles as well. In terms of those older individuals,
Hmm.
or sometimes there's the phone calls that come in and
Hmm.
family members are worried that their loved one is getting scammed. Do you have any tips for families who might be dealing or caring for an older person who may be even more vulnerable to some of these scams?
Right. Well, and let me just reiterate, I'm no expert. I only know my
Yes.
own situation. However, if we're asking for an opinion, I'm always good for an
Oh,
opinion.
yes.
And my opinion is that our loved ones don't get nearly the love and attention that perhaps previous generations of our older loved ones used to.
Yeah.
I remember I saw my grandparents, if not daily, weekly at least. We saw
Mm-hmm.
them a lot.
Yeah.
They were busy, they were productive, they were very much members of our family.
Mm-hmm.
But we live in a world where we are stressed out, we're constantly busy, we're on the go, and our loved ones maybe don't get the love and attention as much as maybe
Yeah.
generations past.
Mm-hmm.
And isn't that really what they're looking for when they're, accepting a phone call, and if the loved ones are adept with the text or with
Mm-hmm.
Facebook, it's they're looking for that love and attention. Someone's pouring into them what's lacking.
Right.
And so that's why it's so important that we as families or close friends pour into each other instead.
Yes.
So that would be my opinion about where that's concerned.
I love that. I love that. And those that are doing scams, they know that as well. They know
Oh,
that we're on the
completely.
go. They know
Completely.
that, grandma is at home and
Hmm.
is on her phone and, I'm going to send this message. I'm going to call. So it's an approach of just like you said, supporting one another, checking in more. We've got to check in with each other more, and
Absolutely.
that
Yeah.
I think is a start for all of
Right.
this. I
You
want to
know,
thank you so
oh,
much for just taking the time out, Zoe. I
yeah,
want you to share where people can find you, your website, where they can get your book, all of that great stuff.
absolutely. So the number one thing to remember, it would be zoemichaels.com. From there, I've got links that lead to where my books can be found. This is the
Great.
only nonfiction book I've written so far. I usually write fiction, happy stuff,
Yes.
or science fiction, because, hey. But I've also written music, some of it kind of also dealing with the idea of being scammed or protecting or being community. So that's also a page on my website. So check out the
Great.
music, check out the books. Um, my music is free. You can listen to it on my website. um, and then I want to leave them too with one other resource I wish I had known about when I was being scammed, and that is a website called againstscams.org. It's been
Okay.
around for at least 4 years. It's worldwide. It's a great resource. By all means, check it out.
Thank you. And we'll make sure to link your website in the podcast description as well as that resource so folks can have that in case they ever encounter a situation or encounter someone that they care about who is going through a similar situation. Thank you so much, Zoe. I look forward to connecting with you again. Everyone, please go check out Zoe's website, check out her books, and keep in touch. Find her podcast. When is the podcast dropping?
It's I'm gonna start May 31st with my own story.
Okay, I love it. I love it. So please, everyone, stay tuned. Thank you so much, Zoe, and we'll see you back in the future.
Thank you.